everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Culture of Paint. We're going to start off talking about what's caught our eye in the miniatures painting world over the last couple of weeks. Then we'll jump straight into the main topic, where we're going to take a look at some of our favourite armies from our time in the hobby. And then we'll close the show out, as usual, with questions from the chat and having a look at what all our hashtag paint cultists have been up to. Culture of Paint is aimed at a mature audience, and therefore we might use explicit language and discuss adult themes. Now, let's talk about paint. Good evening, everyone. Have we got the chat on? We do. Lovely. So I'm your host, Henry, and joining me tonight, we've got Andy, Rich, and Matt. Evening, gents. How are we?
Hey.
Do you like that one? It felt more like news at 10 or good morning Britain or whatever.
Cheers.
Less awful. Right. How are we all? We're all good? Yeah? Ready to get
Good,
cracking? Talk about our favourite things we've seen over the last few weeks?
Give me the stuff. Give me the pictures.
Let's get straight into it.
Need
I
some
think
inspiration.
I am up first this evening. I say that most times, and then Matt just slings in someone else's slide.
You never know. It's a
Good
surprise.
work, Matthew. Good
Keeps
work.
you on-
I don't
Keeps you on
follow
the
the rules. Right,
Keep
so
Stilo on his toes.
we have
It is fantastic. Right. I've been
Wow.
really excited to show this, particularly to Rich, because I think this is right up his street. This guy, Jonathan Ho, he came to my attention, I don't know, a month or two ago when these little robots started popping up on various people, like retweeting them and stuff. And I don't know if you've ever follow. Is it called March of the Robots? I think it's called March of the... Basically, there's like a cartoon robot drawing thing on social media. And he's made some models that look just like it. But basically, he's been creating this Caradron Overlords counts as army.
No way.
Using these halflings as characters. Did I send you a couple of pictures of this?
yeah.
Matt?
There's a few. Got a few of them.
And yeah, so he's just done these, and then he's done, I say, these little weird little robots as engine riggers and things like this. But it's just, I don't think it's very often now, certainly within like GW stuff, that stuff's necessarily particularly unique anymore. Like sometimes you'll see stuff and you think, oh, it's painted really well, or it's a cool conversion or whatever. But most of the time, you've probably seen that idea before. Even some of the weirder like Blanchitsu stuff, since that's exploded now, there's sort of certain tropes, isn't there, that you see within that. But this stuff's just, it's not like anything I've seen. And his painting, I thought, was sort of right up your street, Rich. That style of sort of bright colours and stuff, but wicked weathering and things.
So this week my pick was going to be this week, and I couldn't decide between my pick and this one because I've been following it for a while. I love it. It's such a good idea.
It's cool, isn't it?
It's using lots of the halflings from the Blood Bowl kits. And I remember seeing the first one, like you, I'd seen the robots and I thought that looked really cool. But then I saw the first one was he hadn't started painting it yet, and he was building the first Endringer, which had he built what it sits on and all the it's a weird thing for me to focus on, but all of the railings around the edge is scratch built with like metal tubing. And I was like, God, that looks so neat, and it's so well done. Like, all the trim, all the edge. I was like, oh, that's really good. So yeah, I've been following this a lot. I think it's amazing. It's such a cool army. Like imagine playing against that, like going around to your mate's house and then someone putting that on the table in front of you. Be like, cool, you've already kind of won that.
Yeah, I definitely recommend. Like, it's on Instagram's where I found him. But if you check out his thread, there's full army shots. He's done these incredible ships for the Caradron airships that look like sort of weird old sort of sci-fi submarines almost. Just really cool, man. Like Rich was saying, lots of scratch built stuff, lots of the scale modeling kit type bits and bobs on there. But it's just I just think it's rad. So
got a
that's
very
why that's my pick of the week.
Dr. Robotnik sort of in his little pod feel.
Yeah.
Just waiting for Sonic to turn up.
Yeah, big.
Like, all the bits are like graffiti and stuff. It's so cool.
I like the best.
Yeah, so that's what the little robots look like. They're like physical versions of that type of drawing.
Right.
It's a style. I don't know what it's called, but it's definitely a style. But it's
great choice. It's great
really
pick.
cool. So who's up next? I think if I consult my hastily written notes, it's you, Matt.
Yes. So this popped up a week and a bit ago, and I just thought it was epic. I'm not going to try and butcher his name. It's in writing for a reason. Something like that. It's just really, really well done. I love that he's painted the reflection in the water as well. So you kind of get this cool 3D sort of style, and it's got a backboard, and I love a backboard.
I love that backboard. The soft colour is so cool.
It's meant to be a tree, yeah? Or is it just
I think
like
it's
a
kind
wall,
of looking into trees, like trees in the background.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool, I get it. Yeah, cool.
It's just really,
it's
really
all
well
very
done.
stylistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything he does is amazing. I love everything he does.
And it's not a huge colour palette as well, which is quite nice. It's it's just really, really well done.
Where's the model from?
I'm not too sure whose the model is.
Kickstarter, I think.
Yeah.
Going on right now.
Okay, cool.
I think it's a new brand.
I'll have a dig around for that and
I'll find the link.
Show notes. Yeah, cool.
But it's just
Nice.
so cool. But yeah.
Cool.
Who is next?
It is Rich.
It is Rich.
It's me. So I thought
this was your pick. Cool.
Yeah, see, I think this was a bit different for me because
You thought it was mine.
yeah, I will be quite honest about where my sort of real interest lies within the hobby, and it doesn't tend to be this sort of thing, but it coincided with I happened to be flicking through my my book of Magic the Gathering cards, and I was just in that mind space of like super high fantasy, big monsters and stuff.
You've been bringing that up a lot this week, mate, on our painting
Can't
chats.
help it.
Magic the Gathering coming up,
Shameful.
Well, there's
Magic the
that
Gathering,
GW
it's awesome. You know it's awesome. Just accept it. But yeah. So this piece, it's from the Blood and Skulls Kickstarter from Nocturna Models. The model is called the Bone Crusher by Jesus Martin, and I just love it. I love the colours. I love the way that he's concentrated around the torso. It's a big old model to paint. I just think it's amazing. And like I said, it's quite rare for me to really sort of latch onto the bigger things. Just it's not normally my preference, but I saw this and I was zooming in and checking over every bit of it for quite a long time. So
might stick that in my Slaves to Darkness army, mate.
I mean, you could use it for anything, but that's why it made my pick of the week, because it was the first big model in a while that I've actually properly had a good look at.
So with the sorry, Matt.
I was just gonna say, what scale is it in?
I'm not sure exactly, to be honest, but I think it's 75.
Big model then.
It is. I think it's pretty big. I looked at the rest of the range, and they are. I think he's the biggest of the range, but they look pretty big. But then I'm not 100%, so I'll have to check. But
nice. I was going to ask you, Andy, with the paint on that, is the idea there that there's a strong light coming on him as we look at it from the left, or is that just skin lightening towards the head and the chest and whatnot?
I don't think the light is the orange. I think that that's the skin coloring, right?
Right.
So I don't, but because otherwise the same light would be on the forearm, but there's still there's still the same light source on the forearm as the chest. It's just I think it's the coloration. Yeah, but it is the holy trinity of colors. It's my favorite combo of red, violet, orange, turquoise. It's the best. So
that's why, the colors are incredible. I love the variation, like you said, we're in the chest, but then how his hands and feet match. Awesome.
Yeah, I'd paint everything that color if it were my way.
You do paint everything that color.
I was going to say,
hang on.
It'd just be more purple on it, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, my elves are that color. I forgot.
It's really nice. I don't recognise the dude's name, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. Okay, cool.
And he's insanely fast. Everything he does is really good, really high standard, and he is rapid.
Nice.
Very cool painter
Rapido.
to see him back in action.
Oh, that's grand, man. And then lastly, I think that must be you then, Andy.
Yep. So this is somebody who's on.
Oh, the Void Dragon again.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah, he's an awesome painter. Check out his Instagram. He deserves a lot more followers, and I feel like he's a real up and comer. and I think that the standard of this Void Dragon is ridiculously good. I love everything about it. I love the tone for the bronze. I think the silver is really classy. It looks chrome, but it's not garish. And I think the OSL is very, very tasteful. Blue reflected on the shin, pink on the thigh. It's just wonderful. And I think it's my favourite Void Dragon I've seen, to be honest. I don't know about what you chaps think.
Love the base. I mean, the model's great, don't get me wrong, but the base works really well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I really like how people are using this model to... Well, they do similar themes on it, but just slightly different takes on it. I think it's a model that we're going to see a lot of going forward when people want to push their painting in a certain direction, like different themes, like you said, like using chrome or non-metallics or things like that. I think it's a really good model for it.
It's not typically Games Workshop either, is it?
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's perhaps one of the reasons we're seeing a few more like very high-end paint jobs.
Well, it is over 75, isn't it? It is.
Yeah.
It's literally...
But not even the size necessarily, just the whole style of it. I think G-Dub have almost got a way of sculpting muscles, haven't they? And skin and flesh and muscles and things. And I feel like this is a little bit more... I don't want to say accurate, but
the anatomy
seems it seems a little more less exaggerated. It seems a little more realistic.
Do you think that comes from the size of it, because they can do that?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. I guess as well, in a way, this is meant to be something we've never seen before in universe. This is a shard of an old god kind of thing, so they could do something completely different. And I think I like the fact that you've got the Necron range, haven't you, which is just all hard lines, everywhere kind of thing. And then you stick this guy in the middle of it, and it's just very cool. I said the other week, I didn't like this model when I first saw it, and now I've really enjoy it to the point where I definitely want to do another one.
I need to do mine as well.
Yeah, I'd definitely do another one. I've painted one of these myself already, but it was quite a quick, lots of metals, washes, things like that. But I would definitely like to have another go at doing it very differently.
I
think what's quite nice about this one is it's very muted tones. It's not super chromy in your face. It's just really well done, and the gold and the bronze is not super shiny as well, but it just you can tell what it is, which is nice.
Andy, do you know what Thibaut's Instagram is? His actual tag?
Tail painting, I think.
Cool. What I'll start making sure I do, guys, is when I put the show up on YouTube, I will ensure I put a link wherever possible to everybody's work. So you'll be able to click through to them. Sometimes we're a bit guilty of just assuming everyone knows who we're talking about, just because we spend 90% of our waking time messaging each other with pictures of different people's paint jobs. Tail painting, Adam. That's the one. Nice to see. Quick check on the chat before we move on. Some of the usual suspects turning up. Always forget people from all over the place as well. So we got like Adams. He's just woken up and is watching.
Good morning.
When we got obviously our European contingent settling in for another exciting Friday night.
Well, we're making it more exciting. Mr. Steele, I'll have you know.
That's true. I take a sip of my decaffeinated Earl Grey tea. Here we go. Nice one. Thanks, John. Right, so if that's the picks out of the way, I think, Andy, you have picked our meme of the week.
Oh, yes.
So take it away.
Well, I think we had to preface it with the model, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so the meme is something to do with this monstrosity.
Bellacor!
Which is very cool. Great model.
We all love this. Good times.
Yeah. Very, very much like the majority of the new Slaves to Darkness stuff. It just feels like they've gone, we have a 35-year-old IP here. We have phenomenal artwork. We have a great history of models. through Chaos, through all the different editions of the game. Let's just make a better or more modern version of each one when we update it. We saw it with the Knights, with the Warriors. You're seeing it with Bellacor now. He's a big lad.
I'm curious how big he is in comparison to the old resin one.
I reckon the old resin one would come up to about middle of his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be big.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the video, I mean, videos can be a bit deceiving, but I'm pretty sure he stood in between a Bloodthirster and a Keeper of Secrets.
Oh, I haven't even seen it.
Yeah.
In the video, yeah, he stood in between them, and he looks comparable. Like, I know a lot of it's wings, but it's in the same ballpark, I think.
So that gives us an idea then, doesn't it? The base is presumably the base, the Greater Demons.
It's probably a 100 or 120 mil base, something like that.
But it was interesting. I noticed they did 2 paint jobs, didn't they? They did a 40k version and a fantasy version.
I hope it wasn't the same paint, because that would be a rough gig, wouldn't it? do 4 of these wings. It's a no.
So because they
I thought that was really cool. Sorry, Matt. Go on.
I was going to say, because they do 40k in fantasy, that brings in the meme.
Yeah,
of course it does. Yeah, of course. I bet you this is one of those models which is going to ratchet up in sort of awesomeness, as it were, as soon as you see it 360. Because you know that the way the chains and things are coming off those wings, the way the base is created, it's going to have a huge amount of variety, isn't it, going on sort of all 3 planes or whatever. I'll tell you what, that one skull's loving it though, isn't he? Up in the top right. He's having a great time. You spotted him. Good lad.
I just want the base if anyone wants the model.
Yeah, that could work, mate. Yeah.
We got a deal.
Yeah, I think we could go with that. Yeah, nice. Chat about
all deals after the
all right, so let's have a super quick chat then. When it comes to scenic bases, which it seems even the lowliest troops are beginning to get now, you know, even if it's a little rock with a tentacle coming out of
Tactical rock.
Yeah, tactical rock. How do you guys feel about that in the context of army painting? Because for me, I have an issue with I want my bases to look the same across the army, and if I've got this big, sculpted thing on there, like sometimes it's a struggle. Like with the Void Dragon model I did for the YouTube channel when it came out, I didn't struggle, as it were, but I really made the effort to try and match the base into what I'd done for the other Necron warriors and stuff previously. Like, I think it can be challenging.
I think that it's easy to take away, then add. So I think if they give us these bases, it's probably easy to remove them and convert our own. But it's so nice to get one if you want. So like, Sigvald's base I talk about in the tutorial, but it's just so cool that it comes with a great base, because sometimes, like for me, I love basing, but it requires a lot of energy because you have to sit and think about it for a long time. Sometimes you just want to get on with the model. So like, Bellacor, if he just stood on a thing, I'd be like, oh, what should I have for his base? He can't just have sand. But if you don't want him on that base, then you've got to make something so his feet are elevated, correct? But it's you've just got a great option there. So I think that it's easy to take it away, isn't it, if you really don't want the base it comes with. But if they all come with them, that's really cool. So I'm all for it.
I think it really depends on what your vision for the army is. It depends how much effort you want into your basing. Like I've done, or I know some people have seen armies where the basing is almost an afterthought. Smash some powders on that are super bright, but it works for what it is that you're trying to do. Whereas, I've painted armies before where I've put a lot more effort into the bases, and it's actually made me like the models more. So I think it just depends what it is that you want to do. But I do like it. Like Andy said, it's easier to take it away than it is to add it. I like the option. Because if you think most of them are pretty posable without them, so if you took the bases off a lot of them, it's not very difficult to get them to stand correctly. It just involves maybe a little bit of putty or a little bit of stone or bark or whatever.
It's interesting with him as well, though, isn't it? Because you've got a very plain set of colours for him. Quite dull, quite purposefully so, and a very busy base. And like you say, if you're not careful, then you could unbalance that, because sometimes you'll see the opposite end of the spectrum, won't you? To the slap a few pigments on the base, the people will make these incredibly convoluted or diorama like bases for all the army. And that's what you look at. You almost don't see the model sometimes. It becomes, for me anyway, can become really, really busy. So I think that was really interesting what you said, Andy, the energy thing. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, basing does take some serious energy, doesn't it?
Yes.
I think also depending on what army it is, like if you're painting something where, say for instance, I'm painting an Imperial Guard army and I've got to paint 80 dudes that are exactly the same. Putting little details in the bases can actually make them quite interesting. Whereas if you've got a much smaller army, a simple base could probably work quite well.
Yeah, fair.
Sounds like a new topic for Culture of Paint.
Let me get my note right. While you show us the meme, I'll get my notebook out.
It'll just be what was it? Hashtag basing cultists.
Yeah.
So what's the meme?
For me, this was a when you see it meme as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, what's the meme here? Oh, that's the meme. Also, these guys, they've got to be used for loads of different memes, and they're going to regret this for the rest of
their lives.
That's why you never put images on the internet.
Oh, it's so funny.
I like it. I also like that the guy in the yellow hoodie just at the bottom is just doing this on the right.
Oh, mother!
Yeah. It's a great top meme. That well done, whoever did that first. It was one of those ones where like Bellacor came out, and then I saw this posted in 30 places. I was like, it's good. Good work, community, on your meme game.
It is a good point though, as well, isn't it? Right, like it seems to have been well received across the board by the two tribes that intensely dislike each other, apparently.
Yeah, which doesn't normally happen. So.
Which is why we have this funny little one as well with the
it's a sick bird.
Poor heresy players.
Yeah.
Listen, the seven of us could get very upset about that, Matt.
I just loved it. It's just the expression on the guy's face. It's just like, yep, this is happening.
I'm contributing.
Hey, look, when
you
he
could use it as Angron, Demon Angron.
Or you use him in a Demons of the Ruinstorm army. But anyway.
They can use it. Heresy, you can use Bellacor. Use your mind.
It's your hobby. You can do whatever you want.
But no, I think, well done on that Bellacor model. It's never easy. I think we mentioned on the last show, didn't we? It's never easy updating classics. It's always fraught with peril. So
isn't it crazy how we've had two absolute bangers in a row? Sigvold, incredible.
Yeah.
Bellacor, incredible. Like,
why Chaos is the best, mate. Why Chaos is the best. Anyway, so let's move on to the main topic for tonight's show. So we had a chat amongst ourselves about wanting to show as many pretty pictures as we could during this show and on all our shows, really. A few people have asked, are we going to do this as a podcast? But we're trying to base the shows around the images that we're discussing. So no is the answer for that. We're intending to keep it just visual as well. Videocast? I don't know what the hell it's called. Whatever you call it.
Weekly video show.
To that end, we wanted to pick a few of our favourite armies from all our years in the hobby. So we've got a bit of crossover. We all started at different times. We all dropped out and came back in and whatnot. But we thought we'd pick just a handful. Obviously not all of our favourites, because that would take many shows, and we need something, to put out next episode and the one after that. So this one's, a handful of our favourite fantasy armies and a handful of our favourite sci-fi armies. And we've tried really hard to not know what each other has picked. Matt has an inkling because he's the technological wizard and puts everything together. But the rest of us are, are in the dark about this one. So I think we're kicking off with fantasy armies. Is that right, Matt?
I think I know we're going to find out. I can't remember which one I picked.
Let's see what the slide says.
What a wizard.
Who's up first?
First is fantasy.
Oh, shit, that's me.
Oh, it's you, right.
This is me.
Brilliant choice.
I couldn't think of a fantasy army for a very, very long time. When I first started the hobby, I was already kind of 17, 18, so I got into it quite late. And I never started with fantasy. I got into 40k, didn't pick up a fantasy army till the first Ogre Kingdoms book came out. So I found it quite difficult. That being said, ever since the first time I saw this, which is I think they're called Swamp Elves, which is by Ex Profundus. If you've never checked out Ex Profundus and you want your mind blown by someone or a group of people that think of the hobby in just about the most unique way ever, you should check out the Ex Profundus website. It's got some incredible stuff on there. They've got a Skaven war machine that they've made out of a Forge World Knight with a real mouse skull on it, stuff like that. It's crazy. But this I loved because I was actually talking to Andy about this about a week or so ago. I love the Luminesce that have just been released for Games Workshop, but for me, they're not how I see sort of Elves. For me, Elves are a lot darker. They're more Pan's Labyrinth style than they are kind of Zelda high fantasy style, which is how I look at the Luminesce now. So this army for me sort of encapsulated that perfectly. It's not a massive army. It is essentially a large warband, but that's one of the things that I love about it, that they've got the different variations of sizes. They've got odd characters that were spearmen. There's a guy on a horse that's made out of a death corpse of Krieg. Rough Rider, which is amazing. The big guy with a skull is a Forge World model that looks like the Celtic god Cernunnos, which was a big horned dude. I just love everything about it. It's so themed. It's so dark. I think it's amazing. And the paint scheme, I think, is brilliant as well. It ties everything together brilliantly well. Muted palette, not over the top with sort of level of detail, but enough so that it looks unified, but each model looks unique in their own right. That's why it's my favorite fantasy army. What do you guys think of it?
It's a great choice, mate. It's a pretty significant choice as well. Like, so these swamp elves, the guy who painted them, Ex Profundis, Jake Oscar is his name. He actually now writes horror novels for Black Library.
Wow.
They've done some of the new horror series. When AOS first dropped, it was quite a significant change in aesthetic to what we were used to from the old world Warhammer Fantasy. Even though the aesthetic had changed in Warhammer Fantasy, it didn't change as much as when we saw the Bloodbound and particularly the Stormcast. And I think it was quite jarring for a lot of people. And a lot of what people loved about the old world was that sort of dark, unpleasant undertone to it. Even though you could have bright colours and all the rest of it, you look at all the Warhammer Fantasy role play stuff, all of that, it's pretty bleak. It's pretty grim. Even we talk about the grim darkness of the far future and all that. The Warhammer Fantasy setting was pretty dark. And what Jake did was he started this AOS 28 hashtag or movement. I'm sure people have heard of Inc 28, INQ 28, which was a thing started a long time ago now, and often sort of crosses over with Blanchitsu and stuff. But again, it's this idea of exploring perhaps an alternative artistic take on the setting. And Jake started this really, really early on, and now it's gained a huge amount of momentum. There's groups, social media groups, there's tags, there's all sorts now, and I think you're starting to see it within the official line of things too. Certain things are getting a little bit grimmer. So this was tickles my balls. It's right up my street, this, but it's also really significant within that changeover we had about 5 years ago. This just so cool.
I think it's really accurate, actually, because if you put this next to some of maybe the new Ulfenkarn stuff, I think there's real similarities there. And I think with the Ulfenkarn stuff, you could do some brilliant similar things to this. And this is quite old now. They did this quite a few years ago.
Yeah, it's 5 or 6 years old this year.
Yeah.
I mean, the AOS 28, Inc 28, that sort of movement lost their minds, didn't they, when Curse City stuff was shown, because it was it's just a field day. Like the amount of rogue traders, inquisitors, all the sort of characters I think we're going to see from that. It
has quite a Blanche style to it as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very cool.
And if you look back through it's either on the blog or through his Instagram, you have to go back a long way now. I think he takes you through how he painted some of it. Obviously, he's used textures and things on there, and he's used moss and whatnot.
On the Ex Profundus blog, he's got quite a lot of detail about how he painted them. Also, the actual thought process he put into it, which is something I found really interesting, because it's a great concept. But on his blog, he actually talks about his ideas around. It was, I think this is correct, but it was a group of elves that basically got stuck in a forest that got corrupted, which then corrupted them. it was just such a great, like, I love stuff like that. That the fluff that you come up with and the backstory just makes it more real for me. And this was a great concept through to completion. So it was really, really cool.
Love it.
Yeah.
So next.
Yeah, let's set up the next one. We've got to be careful, otherwise it'll be like a 4-hour stream tonight.
It's me.
Boom.
What a guess.
Couldn't
We'll
tell.
never have guessed that was you.
So there's a reason, and I picked 3 armies from the 3 times I've done the hobby. So there's a whole backstory about me and the hobby, but I did it when I was 10, I did it when I was 18, and I did it when I was in my 20s. So I picked 3 armies that I loved at those times. And so this army is by a guy called Martin Orlando. And the reason I picked this is because when I was like, I think I want to do Luminesce, I sort of, looked around on the Instagrams and the YouTubes. And there was a great chat with the Australian podcast that talks about AOS. I think it's called AOS Coach. And he did a chat with Martin about Luminesce, and I watched that just to hear people talking about Luminesce, and then when I checked out his army, because he was saying he's got an army, I loved it just because of the amount of effort that's gone into it.
Yeah,
I obviously love the color scheme, but regardless of that, he's put loads of work into it, and I always think that's just really cool to see. He's used Eldrad, the Eldar model, for a conversion there, and it's so cool. So it was just something that's very current for me in terms of inspiration. So working on Luminesce now, I needed to find some Luminesce armies, and this is very high standard, very cool color scheme, and big. So yeah, hopefully I can get my spearmen done and actually finish my army myself. But you need to look at images like this sometimes. Like I'm struggling with painting mine, so I need to go, it'll be cool, come on, let's do it. So that's why I picked that one.
Having watched you, like you said, paint some of your spearmen, and the time it takes to do that army is amazing. Like the amount of effort, like you said, that's got into that. Fair fucking play, because that's not good. That didn't take him 5 minutes. Well. Yeah, that didn't take him 5 minutes. That didn't.
Yeah. He's been all in, hasn't he, Martin, since the Luminesce dropped. I think he's always been quite an active person on the AOS, certainly the hobby scene. And I'm pretty sure it was Martin. Yeah, it was, wasn't it, that won 1 or 2 awards when we did that Facehammer sort of live event thing last year. Had some of his early Luminesce stuff in there. You spoke about that Eldrad conversion. He's done one recently using one of the Slanesh models. He's turned it into this creepy, I don't know what the mages are called, but one of the creepy mages. I'm a big fan of the Slanesh elf conversion crossover thing that's going on at the moment. Seems to be quite a lot of scope for that.
Did I have another image as well, Matt?
Did. You wanted to give someone a shout out, didn't you?
Yeah, and I've got a honourable mention.
Oh my goodness, we're doing honourable mentions.
Yeah, because
right, gloves are off, Matt. You've got many images coming in now.
Oh no.
So this was along the same lines, and the only reason I didn't pick this one is because it's like a work in progress army, a bit like mine, and I think when this army's done, it's going to be amazing as well. Great color scheme, loads of effort. So yeah, both those things were like, yeah, this is cool. It's just nice to see. Yeah, I think you have to see. I don't know if you guys agree. You have to see hobbyists doing these armies, because like the heavy metal ones are so amazing, and you can see this huge army. But obviously it's their job, so they smash it. And I think it's just good to see them in the wild, and the hobbyists put the same effort in and come up with cool color schemes and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, definitely. And you also tend to see hobbyists often take photos of the whole units and armies more. Mm-hmm. Like you think about it, when we see the like pros, as it were, versions, it either tends to be a really close cropped image, doesn't it, of a character or maybe the unit, or if it's an army shot, it tends to be on a wonderful board with lighting and all the rest of it. And I've noticed it when filming the videos for YouTube that what you're seeing on screen just doesn't look anything like the model when you pop it down on the desk. And that's how the vast majority of us are seeing these models all the time. So I really like sort of candid hobbyist shots.
I was going to say the same word.
You know, just what do they actually look like? You know, when you're at the club or whatever. We have just had in the chat though. People are wondering if we will ever have an episode where you don't talk about elves. I've said almost certainly not.
All right, find me some better models, and I'll talk about something else. But...
Speaking of elves, the Cult of Paint Dagar Kickstarter late pledge is still open if you want to get some awesome looking 54mm elves. I'll pop that in the links in the description.
If you don't want elves, leave. I'm okay with it. All right.
I hope someone's picked dwarves.
I painted you Sigfold. What else do you want?
What's up next then, Matt?
So this is my one. Old school.
Very different to elves.
Very different. Old school fantasy orcs and goblins. You just cannot beat them. It's I love
especially
big
those
old
rock trolls.
Yeah. No. New ones, no. Old ones. Go with these. Old metal ones that you can lob across the room. Great. It's nothing really beats just like a massive horde army. It's not going to do well most of the time, but it's just annoying for someone else to play against. What was it? We were doing when the old world was ending with Triumph and Treachery. Did you ever play that?
Yeah.
That some of my best games with orcs and goblins came out of that. We kind of abused the rules a bit. We didn't follow it too sort of well.
That was the whole point of Triumph.
It was just an absolute mess of here's like 10 fantasy armies, you're all battling each other at the same time.
If you thought Risk was a like friendship destroying game to play, then Triumph and Treachery was like that plus one.
Because was it the spiders I was playing when we were playing Triumph? One of my friends, he had 80 was it Black Elf, the Black Guard spearmen things?
Is it?
No, they're just the spear ones. They went and he charged that into my spider, and I didn't die initially, and I got some attacks back, but it made him retreat, and he ran off the table. So
all 80,
yeah, all 80 off the table, dead.
Old rules are the best rules.
And it was just hilarious because the spider was half dead. It was on like 5 or 6 wounds left or something, and it was just so funny. And orcs and goblins to just special place. I can't really get enough of them. The guy that did the voice acting in Total War for the orcs, I've worked with him a few times, and hearing sort of Grimgor Ironhide's voice down the telephone is really freaky. It's
that's awesome.
It's a really strange thing, cool. But yeah, you cannot beat old school horde armies.
That's a good shout.
Ross has just mentioned, and I was going to say we're going to get a ton of this, I suspect, when this goes out to the rest of YouTube. Old school is a perspective thing, you know. For some people, old school would be much older than this, but for others, this is old school for them in the hobby.
We've got old school coming, don't you worry.
Yeah, so
your definition.
But be nice. But yeah, I mean that edition you've chosen that from was, I mean, I don't think we'll ever see a 28-ish mil rank and flank game with that quantity of miniatures on the board again. I just don't. Like it was silly, but it meant you got to see awesome sites like this. Like that's a other than maybe that boar regiment, that's a legit like army you could have faced if you went to an event or a weekend. Probably not painted quite as nice, but yeah. But no, that's
I really miss trying to fit all of them onto a movement tray. and like you had to like model them in such a specific way just so that they weren't like standing crooked, and it's just like okay, that one has to go there exactly. Now number them.
Yeah, I numbered mine.
And just ridiculous BSBs. That was just great.
Hey, it looks like they might be making a comeback in Age of Sigmar, right? Bring back the flagmen. That's what we want. And girls, bring back the flag bearers.
people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great time, like right before the world blew up.
Yeah, I want to paint. I really do. That spider's on my list of models I'd like to paint. Like, I don't necessarily want a whole greenskin army, but I'd really love to paint that spider.
Stood the test of time. It's not really old,
really has, hasn't it?
Doesn't need changing.
What is it?
Do you remember the first
10 years old at least?
Do you remember the first time you ever saw that model? Like, holy shit!
Yeah. It was one of the first real biggies, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I
think it was the biggest model at the time. The biggest plastic one.
Definitely. The carrier thing for all the little goblins on top is nightmare. It's I love the model. I hate whoever made that specific bit. It breaks any time you touch it.
Yeah. Oh, they're great. But, maybe I'll go and have a look on now. How much are they?
Like
Don't
45.
Do it,
45.
No shopping, Wolves.
All right, sorry. It's going to be a dangerous show tonight, this one.
Yeah,
Dangerous.
on a dangerous path.
Okay, what's up next?
So next up, I think we're into 40k now.
Was that all? I doubt it.
No, we're not.
I sincerely doubt that one, Matt.
We have yours.
Wow. It's a bit more old school. So for my choices, I decided to go with a lot of nostalgia, but also stuff that I thought was maybe quite significant within the context of tabletop gaming painting or army painting, that sort of thing. Partly just because I'm a coward and I couldn't pick real life people to choose because there was too many to choose from, so I just chose the faceless corporations versions. But the reason I chose these dudes was I had my first ever painting lesson on some of the Skaven Blood Bowl team, GW Wolverhampton, GW Dudley. Yeah. I remember Manan dropping me off. Effectively, that's what GW was daycare.
Fresh.
Just spent the day like painting these dudes like this. Painted my whole team. Used to absolutely brutalize my best mate. Used to run rings around him. And the very last thing that ever happened, like the last game of Blood Bowl I played as a kid, sort of thing, was one of the crowd threw a rock and killed my thrower.
Wow.
So
the irony
stuck with me to this day. Interestingly, not remotely interestingly, we just started playing it again recently on the computer, on the Steam version, and something not dissimilar happened in about our third or fourth game back. So 20 years later, still going. But no, there was no other reason to say it was my first ever painting lesson, and I certainly wouldn't have imagined 20 plus years later to be to hopefully be providing that service to other people. Because I know for me, like the difference it made having someone who appeared to know what they were talking about take you through painting as you were doing it. So not just watching a tutorial or anything like that, but actually having that person in there in the flesh to sort of chat to and go, oh no, put that there, stop doing that, less on your brush, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I love these guys, man. Still got them in a box somewhere. And the mutants. Oh,
sounds like you need to paint one.
Misty-eyed nostalgia, man. I also think that the new Skaven team is certainly my favourite of the plastic teams. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Skaven, I have an obscene amount of Skaven from this era. I would say 10 plus kilos of this. I didn't say that because I put it in the loft the other day. That's a year long project. That one.
What you were saying though about Matt's last pick though, that was like what Skaven was one of those armies, like 40 infantry, 40 infantry, 40 infantry, couple of big bits behind it, the big screaming bell. They were that army.
I love the classic Vermin Lord. It's one of my favourites.
Yeah. I think it's also one of those ones as well, isn't it? That it's very Games Workshop. Like a lot of the other stuff is your classic fantasy things, whereas Skaven is very much them, and Jez Goodwin is sort of his baby. But yeah, so that was my choice. Also, red. Look at those red toenails. That's what I'm talking about.
Snazzy.
Not sure what to paint it. Paint it red.
Lovely pick.
I think you have a few more, don't you, Henry?
Oh yeah. So my other choices were fantasy. So this one,
Oh, I've got that white dwarf.
I had so much fun these last 2 weeks going back through sort of the late 190s, early to mid 200, sort of up to 220 of white dwarfs. That was my sort of era the first time round. The reason I picked these guys, twofold really. One, I love Chaos, always have, still do. But this and the Undead Army that came out a few months before this, but I picked Chaos because I like Chaos more. It represented a real shift in painting style from the studio.
Dark, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's just the basing in particular. All of a sudden, these weren't goblin green flocked bases at the top, and it just made an enormous difference.
It looked brutal.
They just look fantastic, and I would really recommend, like, if you dig this, go and check out these white dwarfs. They're, as I say, they're in the sort of mid 215, 216, something like that. They've got a fantastic article with the heavy metal team at the time. People like Matt Parks, who was an absolute like Golden Demon winning legend, and then worked for heavy metal. They talk about their approach, how they painted. It was the Undead Army, actually, not the Chaos Army that they're talking about with that. But it was just really interesting, I think, to see that decision. Like, as a studio, right, it's time to evolve. You know, for better or worse, you know, they are and they were the leaders, the market leaders of this. You know, and when they want to change something, it changes something for everybody. They can influence trends so much, and I think that's what happened with this. Also, was really impressed with the paint jobs on when I went back and looked at it. Like
the shield and the banner.
Yeah,
right?
the banner, right? It really stands up.
Amazing.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff stands up. My sort of honourable mentions, I guess, if Andy's getting one, I'm having one. This was the era with the very first Tale of Gamers series run by White Dwarf, which was where they had 4 of the crew would be given a budget each month, and they'd buy some models and paint them and build an army. It's gone on to become everybody does it now. It's a fantastic way of sort of slow grow with your mates. And the editor at the time, Paul Sawyer, fat bloke, he did a Beastman army because the models were new, and he did them all with black, like really like jet black skin. Just loved it. His was not going to be my choice, though. My choice is going to be the Bretonnian army from that Tale of Four Gamers. Richard Gunson, flawless 5th edition Bretonnia. Will never be beaten. Is the greatest Bretonnia you're ever going to see. So we should move on before I just keep going.
I think you've got one more page that you wanted.
Oh, this is all good stuff.
Yeah. So again, it's this, you know, it's just more and more of the change. I mentioned it earlier with Bellacor. I really love the sort of pride and faith they have in their Chaos IP.
Yeah.
You know, it's been consistently good throughout all the editions since the 80s. Yet you could show someone, say someone dropped out in 1989, you could show them a Chaos Warrior from now, and they would know straight away. They'd know what it was. You could show them the Lord of Change, a Plague Bearer, a Minotaur, whatever. They'd know it. And I think along with Skaven, I feel like Chaos is one that GW really went off on.
I think this is the best era for Chaos for me as well. Maybe because that's where I first saw it. But like the Beastmen going back, like there's just a feel and an atmosphere to them, and that from the painting and the sculpting, they're just proper evil. They don't look sort of plastic or toyish. You're like, oh, these are grim geezers. And I remember being a kid and getting this exact white dwarf. I didn't want to collect them, but I thought they were awesome, and it would be my dream army to fight against with some nice wood elves.
Yeah, man. Big fan. So yeah, those were my fantasy picks.
Nice work.
We are now on to the 40k.
Oh, nice.
So first up is
Is it Rich? Okay. Right.
Now
I couldn't guess this one.
It's not me, is it?
This is about as old as my hobby goes. So I get, like, when I was looking, that's the first time I've seen a lot of those images of the beastmen, stuff like that, because I was never into it at that stage. How you just described them and how you felt about them is exactly how I feel about this sort of stuff. So the Demon Hunters book was the first army book that I ever got. I'd literally been to the Games Workshop, I think, twice, and I was persuaded into buying the book, which I then went home and poured over for hours and hours and hours. Partly because I instantly fell in love with Imperial Guard. And then secondly was also, I love the idea that you could add an Inquisitorial retinue to an existing army, that it didn't just have to be all one army, that there was different elements that could come in and work alongside each other. And this was obviously way, way beyond my means at the time. I never came even close to collecting an army of this size, but I absolutely adored it the first time I saw it. So yeah, this was actually really interesting because I haven't looked back at the old Imperial Guard book, all the Demon Hunter books, for a really, really long time. And like you said, Henry, it instantly made me like, oh, there are some nice new Inquisitor models, and they're probably going to redo Imperial Guard at some point.
It's perfection. It's absolute hobby perfection. It's faultless in every single way. The fact that there's one Lehman Russ there and it looks really cool and scary. It's the classic back of a White Dwarf army, right? The Squadron Sentinels, there's Steel Legion there. Same as you, Rich. I was out the hobby when Demon Hunters came out. I got back in through the Eisenhorn novels and therefore through that, and I ended up buying a load of Demon Hunters models even when I wasn't painting. I was just like, oh, these are cool. And just that notion that you could have an army that it was 100% okay for it to look very disparate. Yeah. It didn't need to be this cohesive, this army. And I think for people like certainly you and me who get a bit, what's the word, derailed sometimes with big army projects.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm can focus, right? So we get a bit squirrel, it can be that, right? But the idea that these armies it doesn't matter. All I've got to do is paint one troop type and one HQ in this style, and then I can paint another one. I can paint another one. Again, probably second only to my box of Skaven is my metal box of this era Demon Hunter stuff. It's glorious, mate. It's
just one of the best Codex covers, I think, as well.
The artwork was so good.
Yeah, it's banging.
Oh,
it was so different at the time, and also, I mean, it's not in this pic, but that was the first time we ever saw like the proper pictures of the Grey Knights. Right. The artwork from those Grey Knights is still being used to create. Now that there's like Primaris models in the upscale, you can actually make some fantastic miniatures from those models. I loved it, and like what you said before, there was blade hammers, storm hammers, all these different gigantic tanks that were this big. You saw a Lemon Russ on the battlefield, you're like, oh god, how am I going to defeat that?
It's got a battle.
And interestingly, so that it had been like that, Rich, for 10 years prior to when you got into this hobby. It was a lot of my sci-fi picks were guard armies. Like I think there's definitely I think there still is actually, but there was certainly a big contingent of treadheads within Games Workshop.
There still is.
It seemed like every other issue there was some staff members Imperial Guard army.
Yeah.
You
can tell just by, I think there's just a correlation between people that fight in like history and World War II and all those different things, that people that go down Bovington, there is a link between that and Imperial Guard. And I was definitely one of those people. I love the idea of in a universe where there are 15-foot tall superhuman soldiers with massive plasma guns, there's just a bloke from down the town that's got like a mask a crappy piece of armor on and a flashlight on end of it, and he's probably shitting himself. But I love that part of it, that they still had that place within it. So it was great army, great time getting into the hobby at that point. Because everyone was an underdog, and the Imperial Guard's the biggest underdog there is. So
I can't decide if they're the ones I'm most anticipating the sort of revamp of.
You want to know?
And obviously, I'm guessing Eldar for you, but
see,
give me the Guardians.
I can't decide. I'm on the fence because I love the Imperial Guard more than just about anything. But then also, depending on, I think I would do the Imperial Guard regardless. I think that's the easier one. Like when they redo them, I think they're going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Eldar, I think there's a possibility that they won't be quite as amazing as I want them to be, that I imagine that they could be.
I think they will. I think just based on the Howling Banshee kit, I think it's going to be spot on.
And like Jane.
It's so faithful. Like the Howling Banshee kit is one of the most faithful redos.
Yeah.
Like it's so spot on. So it just gives you so much excitement for any aspect warrior. I would really like them to do Grey Knights, because when this book came, when this book came out, the 5 Grey Knights you could get in metal, I think were the best Grey Knights done, because I had the really old Grey Knights from maybe late 80s.
Yeah.
And then when I stopped hobbying, I didn't see the new ones, and I came back and that new set had come out, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. And I'm never normally like this, and I like it when they refresh stuff, but for me, something got lost in the new plastic Grey Knights, and I think it's the simple fact that the head's a separate part, that where the neck brace kind of integrates with them, it's not as like integral, or there's just something about them that was lost, I think, in that plastic kit. But this era of Grey Knight, I wanted a full army of Grey Knight Terminators.
Yeah. I think also with that, I agree with how it got lost a little bit. Like when in this book, if you took a Grey Knight army, 25 models.
Yeah.
If that. And then
it was more likely a unit of 5 in this army, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's tended to be it,
yeah, with like a converted dreadnought, and that was your whole army. I think that they were the first, I think in my mind, they were one of the first proper elite sort of 40k armies where you really didn't need a lot, which I thought was really interesting. And there's some in the back of this book I was flicking. This was the book that kind of taught me that I could change the Games Workshop models, because in the back there's a whole page where I don't think I've seen people do this in current codexes or books, where people who work for Games Workshop had done kit bashes on loads of random models, including the Grey Knights models, to create Inquisitors and Inquisitors like gangs.
Yeah. That was it's the
like
back page, isn't it?
Book. Yeah. And I was like, I'm allowed to cut them up. I can cut them up and change bits. And they were like, well, yeah, you can do what you want with them. I was like, oh, brilliant. Get the hacksaw out, cut through the metal head, cut one in half, get like a lighter to melt a bit of him, all that kind of good stuff.
Great.
So it's the thing that started doing that.
That's
awesome. Great book.
That's awesome.
But I could talk about Imperial Guard forever. So,
Well, all you need is a Lehman Russ Armor 14. Get within. Job done.
Yeah.
I think.
Love it.
Next up is.
So this is my other pick for 30k, but also sort of sci-fi. Everyone knows I like a little bit of clear red. I think it's quite apparent that I'm a fan of the Tamir Candy Red. I'm not going to try and butcher Adam's last name, but Adam, our mate from Australia, has got probably my favourite current or army that is kind of in process or out there at the moment, purely because I love the way that candy colours or clears, whatever you want to call them, are really quick to do, and they have got a very, very quick effort to reward ratio in my head. Now, I do think a lot of people do fall into the trap of going, this is really quick and easy, therefore I'm going to paint it really quick and it'll still look cool, which is perfectly okay to do. What I love about Adam's army is, the Candy Red is done fantastically well, and it's not as easy to do as people think it is when you want to take it to like the next level. But then every other aspect of every single miniature is done to the same level. There are conversions all over the place. The level of detail on the painting is incredible. It is, I want that army really, really badly. So Adam, if you're ever going to flog it, mate, hit me up. But yeah, I would love to play against it. I'd love to see it on a board. From the way that he's done his basing to the color choices, to the conversions, it is absolutely amazing.
Like,
look at that.
Box Knot is the one. The Box Knot.
When was the last time you saw a box knot and went, oh my god, that's incredible?
That's the best box dread as well. That was the that's it, Ironclad, the Forge World Ironclad. Yeah.
With them, like when was the last time you saw one of the old school box knots? Because if you put that next to like a modern Redemptor, the scale difference is ridiculous, but that is absolutely brilliant.
Box Knot's the ultimate nostalgia for me, though.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
I've really got a hankering to paint one at the moment.
And that opening VT of the first Dawn of War game as well. You know, we finally get to see how a Dreadnought moves.
Yeah.
You know, it sort of stomps around and kills
like a
kills
penguin.
For me, it was the
like a penguin.
the original Boxnaut with the missile launcher and the twin glass cannon.
Yeah, painted in Dark Angel Scream, perfection. It's such a shame in a way that Adam is so far away. He's a very passionate gamer as well, and there is a ludicrously talented group of guys in Melbourne that all game but all paint. I don't want to go through all the names because I'll inevitably forget someone, and I don't want to do that. But suffice to say, you know, in most communities, Adam would probably be walking away with best army at every event he turned up to. It's not always the case in his local, you know, and that says something about the obscene level of painting that those guys are able to do. Army painting, particularly, you know, it's the best I've ever seen from a community, like hands down.
For me, it's heresy, something that we've stepped away from quite a bit now, me especially. But the first ever hobby event I went to was the Horus Heresy weekend of 2015, I think, was it, Andy?
Yes.
14 or 15. And every time I look at this army, I remember what it was like when I walked into that for the first time, and there was like the first time I'd seen like the table with all the Forge World stuff on it, and I could pick it up and look at it with all like the t-shirts in the background, and sitting in those seminars. And then, like, the new model, the new Primarch would pop up and everyone's arm would shoot up with their phones. That amazing hobby buzz that you had for, like, the whole weekend, that's how I feel when I look at that army, because that's exactly what it reminds me of.
Yeah,
I miss that a lot, that era.
Yeah.
And
that's probably my favourite era of hobby.
I'd go back
for now, eh?
For now.
It's still the glorious new world when we can all hang out again, right?
Mm.
And then we'll see what people have been doing for the last 18 months, locked in their basements. Painting wise, yeah. It's a wicked choice. I'm glad. Yeah, I think I had this for one of my picks of the week, actually. So well done, Matt, on editing that out. I was a bit bummed out, but at least we get to see it, so that's nice.
And I can't wait for his Magnus.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pick of the week was he's done a paint job on Angron, a custom sculpted Angron for another good friend of ours out in Oz. And it's well worth going and checking out Adam's Instagram, which I cannot remember the name of, but I will.
Full Circle Hobby.
That's the one, Full Circle Hobby. I will promise I'll put these all in the show notes, guys. Yeah, right, what's up next? Sorry, Rich.
No, go on. It's fine.
Next up is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it so much. Like, I picked this. This was from when I was like 10 and I got into the hobby. And I picked this box for a few reasons, actually. One of the reasons was I could not afford it. So I could never buy it ever when it was current. But it also, for me, is like the dream army composition.
Yeah.
Like, I wish that this is all you had to do for an army, because you've got, a Devastator squad, one tactical squad, one scout squad, Terminators, one vehicle, perfect Boxnaut with a banner on a square base, and the ultimate command squad of 4 random characters. Epic. And that logo, that 40k logo is the 40k logo for me. And even things like the grey marble on the outside of the box, like all of these things just take me back. And I would love to own that box. If I saw that on eBay, I'd probably spend quite a bit on it. And I'd be tempted to paint it just like that. I'd love to game with that army. I've got a metal Terminator, which I am tempted to do just like these guys. But yeah,
I don't know, but I think those were the new plastic ones.
Those the plastic, yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell by the size of the heavy flamer geezer.
Yeah.
And they overhang on the
bases. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were back on the tiny bases still, weren't they?
I miss those days.
Have I told you my story about those Terminators?
Go on.
Have I not told? So, when I first got into Warhammer, I think I first got like a Marine bike, and that was about a £5, and then I got like 5 Plague Marines, that was £5. Khorne Berserkers, 5 men, £5. So the plastic Terminators came out, and I was like, well, there's 5 geezers. They're going to be a £5, aren't they? So I think I saved up a £5 somehow, and I went. And this was the first time I'd ever been to a Games Workshop, because I used to get it from a local comic book store that just had it. So it was like, I'm going to Games Workshop for the first time. I'm going to get my Terminators, and I went in. They were 15 quid, and I was devastated. Absolutely gutted. So you can imagine there was no chance of me getting this box, and also that Scout Sergeant is the best Scout model ever made, I reckon.
Oh, there's a bunch of contenders from that era of Scouts.
Give me a better Scout.
There's the kneeling sniper one.
It's okay.
And there's one of the lads with the bolter.
Sergeant's the best.
It's a very good era of Scout models. That's
a great pick.
Also, the tactical squad sergeant with the fist in the air and the helmet on the thing, and the Devastator sergeant. Oh, so good.
I do miss the sergeants with the flags. I completely, the sergeants,
bring back flags.
Bring them back, mate. Bring them back.
I think I might have to, because when I started doing my Blood Angels project, I kind of wanted to base it on this box, because I was never in the hobby then. But I agree with Andy. I love the composition that the biggest, baddest thing on there is a dreadnought. So when I was doing my Blood Angels, I based it around that's what I wanted this army to look like. So I might have to go back and add flags to all my sergeants now.
There's 9 banners in this box, and is that 35 models, I think, as well, with 9 banners.
That's minimum banner to model ratio. You should be. Because
I think I'm going to have to.
The best part is the veteran, not the veteran sergeant, what did it work with when you split them into combat squads? The second in command in the squad, they've got banners.
Yeah, combat squad them.
Oh yeah.
Two banners per squad.
2 banners, 1 squad.
Yeah. It's a whole.
The chaplain's got one too.
It's let's just for time, guys. Let's make sure we get through all these slides. But you're correct. This is the archetypal Backer White Dwarf army. This is what all armies are judged against.
If anyone's got this box, then comment and I'll buy it off you. Or you can give it to me.
Matt? So next up is
it's me again. So like I said at the start, I picked 3 armies from 3 eras. So the Luminesce for obviously right now what I'm into, and those Marines for when I was 10. And when I was about 18, 19, I had a go, and Tau were a new thing. I was like, what the hell are these? And also I loved Gundam. I think I liked Gundam before Warhammer. These instantly appealed. And I think this was the best Tau army at the time by a chap called Bruno Rizzo. And I also picked this because they still influence me now, just the style. It was like, oh, they've got like chips and stuff on, and like rust. Does that happen? Because I think, what people weren't really doing that, and I came into it, and just seeing like a Tau army that isn't like Tron with edge highlights on every line, battle damaged, pale color scheme, desert bases, tick, 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 tick.
Imperial Guard Tau, you mean, basically.
Just awesome. And I'm still want to do my own Tau army, and this army still influences me for sure. Yeah, it's super cool. Is there an army shot, Matt?
There is.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Oh, I love the blacked out support suit or whatever it is.
Broadside.
Is that a broadside over there at the back on the right?
It's a broadside, yeah. It's
right.
This is the era when it was shoulder mounted, but he mounted them on the arms, and then he used a forge weld suit which had the missile pods on the back and used that. So there's all these little conversions, and that's like what still inspired me to do the conversions of mine today, which is cool. And I think this is from like early 2000s, maybe like 2006, 7 time. And I still think it's one of my favorite Tau armies. So that commander's awesome as well.
That's a great choice. Yeah.
So, yeah, just love it really. And I hope Tau gets some love.
Well, yeah, I think, I'd certainly like to see some more of yours. Let's make that a priority. Eh?
Maybe next week.
Let's do it.
So that's all I've got to say on those, really.
Love how the basing and the scenery all tie in together. There's something really special about creating a board or doing scenery that ties into the specific army.
Yeah.
I think, well, speaking of that, I think it was around this era that G-Dub started doing that brown bases on the 40k stuff. So you see how on the orcs, they've got that, I think, and whatever the brown was at the time, they'd paint the rims in it. Because I'm going to hazard a guess that this might have been a White Dwarf, can we please photograph your army or something?
Can't remember.
But it's, belting choice. And you're right, mate. It was this alternate style of painting. It's been around much longer than I thought. So when I was looking through I think it was the early 200 issues, there was this Imperial Guard army, Zaragrad Guard, and there was this article. They built this effectively Stalingrad style 40k board, and one of the guys had Warwick Kinrad, I think, had converted this Guard army up to look very sort of World War II-esque, but tons of weathering, lots of little extra bits added onto the tanks, all those sorts of things. And I think in my mind, I always think of that as being a more modern, although it's a much older style of painting, as in military modelling and all that. I think for me, I've always thought of it as a more modern development in tabletop gaming. But actually, it's been around for donkeys. But it's always cool when you see it on things like Tau or Eldar, stuff that you don't always assume would get all beaten up. Really nice, man. What's up next, Matt?
So next up, mine.
Ooh.
Sisters of Battle, the nuns with guns.
Yeah.
They're just like, I got into, when I first got into 40k, it was probably late 90s, 98, 99. That's when I kind of first went into a Games Workshop, and this was my first army. The like hefty Sisters of Battle that you put in a case and you can knock someone out with because it's weighs an absolute bloody ton.
Yeah.
It was such a fun army to sort of, because there wasn't any other army really like it at that time. Everything was massive Space Marines or massive Orcs, but this was just like tiny little people that were all monoposed, and you only glue the backpack on, and that's it. There's no other bits to them. And when you sort of read into them, the lore on them is just so ridiculous. They're essentially just religious fanatics that praise the God Emperor, who doesn't think he's a god, but they think he's a god. And then they'll go out and just
burn things, just burn everything.
Yeah, well, you got the Holy Trinity. You got the Flamer, the Bolter, and the Melter.
Yeah.
And they'll turn up at your planet. They'll put their ships in low orbit. They'll blare some like hymns out of them, and then they'll not drop pods.
Yeah.
They'll drop churches down, and then bust out of those. It's just
so metal.
I know, it's so just ridiculous, and they're just brilliant. And like they've been recently redone, obviously now with all of the new kits, and they're so good. It's just the best army for me. It's
still want to do it. Me and Henry feel the same way. We're like, sisters, I need to do them.
Stunning.
And then actually, when I got back into it as an adult, in the Bath Games Workshop, we had a fantastic manager, Alan Bruce, who I've mentioned before, and he had an amazing attitude with the hobby because he really made sure that everyone painted their armies, and he obviously always led the way, and his armies were painted. And he had a Bretonnian army which was just peasants. It was a peasant-themed Bretonnian army, fully painted, with only one unit of knights because I think you had to. And then he had a Sister of Battle army, which was lovely, super well painted, all complete. And I don't think they were very good, I seem to remember. I think he basically relied on his exorcists when you had the forge little turret. And I think everything else was not so great. But I just always... It was like the only fully painted Sister of Battle army I ever saw, I think. And it was all really well done. So...
Well, they were super expensive to buy originally. I think they were like... What was it? You got 2 heavy bolters in a pack, and that was B category, and it was like £11 something for 2, and it was just insane. And then when 2004, the prop Witch Hunters Codex came out, and they got obviously their new Exorcist, they got their new Rhino upgrade kit for the base standard Space Marine Rhino, and then the Repentia came out and all that stuff, and it was just, and obviously you got all the Inquisitors as well. The was it Kamarazov? The Throne of Judgment. Yeah. And it was just ridiculous.
It's got a brilliant line or something, isn't it, about this? The dude's like, he declares the dude innocent of his crime but guilty of wasting my time.
Yeah, basically.
It's just like,
and it's just
so good.
There's something about Sisters. It's like, what's that? Their motto's like something along the lines of like, innocence doesn't prove anything.
Something, and just an absence of guilt.
It's just, they're just brilliant. And I think they did the same thing in the Demon Hunters Codex that they did in here. You have the what was it? The conversion bits.
Yeah.
And that was just so cool to see.
So different.
And it was the late 90s, early 2000s for these things were just great. And then I got 2 cases of the old GW cases full of them, and I'm just like, I'm never selling those.
I love the Seraphim for me, the best. The 2 pistols in the air. The Superior is superior.
Yeah.
That unit is just one of my favorites of all time, I think. The hand flamers, so good. Didn't Staff used to get models on a discount based on weight, which meant that this army was very possible for Staff.
For Staff. Not for your average Joe. It was very expensive, but totally worth it.
Filters.
Good choice.
Yeah, cracking choice, mate. Yeah. So I think, is this the last one up now for the sci-fi?
So this will be the last for sci-fi, yeah.
Brilliant. So I'll gloss over this fairly quickly, as this was my choice for favourite sci-fi army. Very similar reasons to the Chaos one I chose earlier, in that it was a real shift in style. This dropped a month or 2 after. We saw this not long after the Falcon came out and the Fire Prism came out.
Bonkers.
The paint job, I think, is absolutely awesome on those grav tanks.
Insane.
And at this time there was a game called Epic 40,000, which was a small sort of 6-8-ish mil game set in the 40k universe, and the main Elder army for that was painted in this scheme. I loved it and tried to replicate it so many times and just couldn't, as a kid or whatever, young teen, whatever it was.
I did it at 10.
But it's just again, it was, for me, it was a real shift into, as I was perhaps slightly maturing as a person, going from being like 10, 11, whatever, to early teens. It felt like this was a bit cool. It was becoming a bit more gritty, a bit less in your face, scarish kind of thing. But I just think the color combo, friggin' awesome. And that's all really, exactly the same reason as I chose the Chaos Army. It was just a significant shift in the studio painting style. But much as I'd love to bang on about it, I'm conscious of the time, and I really want to talk through our Paint Cultist picks this week. So thanks, chaps. That was brilliant. I've now got a million more ideas to think about and projects to not paint. I suspect we'll revisit this topic at a later date, probably more than once. But let's move on to
pep.
Yeah, I know, mate. It's just Anyway, we need to move on. Right, Paint Cultist. So we'll close out the show. We'll take a look at the chat, and then we're going to take a look at what work people have been doing and posting on social media using the hashtag #PaintCultist. It's got to the point now where it's incredible. Our choices for the week. What I've done this week is pick a handful. The guys haven't seen them yet. So I'm going to. Guys, if you're not following that, please see a wonderful variety of miniatures, both scales and settings, and you also see a fantastic breadth of hobbyists there as well. It's really exciting to see people saying, "Oh, I'm new into the hobby. I've watched the show. What do you think of my first Space Marine or whatever?" And then you've also got some guys and girls in there that are legit top tier paint. So if you want a jumping off point for find people to follow, minded paint obsessives, go and check out the #PaintCultist.
I think you lagged out there for a bit, Henry. Just lost you for a second.
Sorry, bud. I was just waffling. I doubt it was particularly interesting.
Go on the hashtag.
Yeah, go on the hashtag.
Hit
me up with
Right, so we have first up
the first slide. Nice.
Ooh.
So it's one of the new Necron something Mancers.
That's cool.
With the cool Channel 4 logo skull, as you protect, which will mean absolutely nothing to any viewers from outside the UK.
Oh yeah, Channel 4.
That's fucking awesome.
It's just cool. I mean, they're all cool, which is why I've chosen them. But I am a big fan. I'm becoming an even bigger fan of this new Necron range. I think there's a lot of potential to paint it very differently to how we've seen, perhaps, and make quite a creepy looking army out of it. And again, OSL doesn't normally float my boat, but it's just cool. It just works on the model. Really nice to see. It's just and then a healthy amount of skulls on the base there as well. Always.
Is it enough though? I don't think so.
It's never enough. But it's a good start. But yeah, guys, I don't know when I lagged out on that previous say. Make sure you follow that paint for a real breadth of work from different hobbyists. So what's on the next one?
Oh,
the greatest model of all time.
Ooh, bold claim.
Well, certainly the greatest orc model of all time.
It's the greatest orc shaman.
So it's this
I'll
is
agree with that.
sculpted by Brian Nelson. Always loves Warhammer orcs painted in not Warhammer skin tones. And I still think this model's just superb. And it's just a lovely paint job, isn't it? It's quite nice, it's quite amusing, quite pastel colours. If I didn't see the name of who'd painted it, I would hazard a guess it was a European. But it's got that sort of, that era when was it, like the early 40s? We saw a lot of the guys, Spain, France, Italy, winning Golden Demons and stuff.
Yeah,
it's that sort of vibe. Love the little purple dags or purple flames on the hood.
It's the Holy Trinity again.
It's just a fantastic model. I sadly chopped the face off the last one I had.
Unbelievable.
I know. It's bad, wasn't it?
After saying it's the best.
I know. Well, it was unintentional. It was a second-hand piece. It was all glued together, and I just cut off a corner of his face, and that was it. Threw my toys out of the pram. But yeah, that's irrelevant. Luca, fantastic paint job on it. Thanks for tagging it. What's up next, Matt? Oh, so can't have a paint cultist gallery without some Space Marines. And I've just realised now it's not what I thought it was. I thought this was a Howling Griffin model, but it's not, is it? It's a fist with just a lot of.
Nope. I think we've lost. We lost Henry. Nope, he's back.
Have a chat about it, guys. If I'm lagging out, you guys have a chat.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool model. We've seen this model a lot because obviously within the Indomitus box, it's been around a bit, but it's nice to see that people are still finding it interesting to paint, and it's a really, really nice version of it. Nice use of the red. I really like the base. Yeah, very, very cool model. I like it a lot. Good work.
The face is really well done as well. It's got that
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
highlight on that side.
Yeah.
It's all
Really
very
cool.
good. If that's for an army, then that army will be mental. I hope that's a single figure.
Yeah, because he's going to put in some work if that is for an army, but fair play to him because it looks brilliant.
It's not helping with my hankering to do yellow either. So
Or a Space Marine, you know, got to paint a Space Marine from time to time just to keep the eye in, you know.
an old one, an old
Space
green
Marine
red.
palette cleanser.
Yes,
What's up?
exactly.
What's up next, Matthew?
So next up is
Haha, no way.
That's
You in a
cool.
few years, Rick.
Yeah, literally.
I've seen
Me in
quite
retirement.
I've seen quite a few of this version going around, and it's really, really cool. It's you've never seen a model depicted in a wheelchair before, though I've never seen one. Which is
true,
nice to
actually.
see. It's getting a bit of attention.
Yeah. Who makes it? Does anyone know?
I'm not too sure the manufacturer. I'd have to find that out.
But that is a really, really good point that you made, Matt. That you don't see a lot of representation for people that are different, like bodily able, just within the hobby. So I think that is really cool that is something that someone's to bear, and they've done a really good job painting it as well. I really like the base. The base looks really cool.
I love the stone anvil. That's dope.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a dwarf charging down at an army. You know, spikes on his wheels, proper like Barlin style out of the Hobbit or whatever it is.
Yeah,
it's just brilliant.
It reminds me, it's a bit like Terry Pratchett-esque for me. Like it reminds me of that sort of crazy dwarf, sort of crazy barbarian style, which I think is really, really cool.
And they'd have that funny element as well, wouldn't they? In like Discworldy stuff, there's always that little bit of comedy sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. Nice.
So
what else we got?
Next up is
very cool.
Seen a lot of good stuff with tattoos recently. I think that what tends to happen, which is a good thing about social media, is a few people might try something brave or, you know, do something creative, and then other people have a go, which is great. So, you know, you might see people doing a lot of busts with tattoos on social media, and that makes other people do it. And that's a positive thing, I think, because, then you get to see more cool models like this. I think that's a nice thing now about social media is it kind of spreads around things, and you definitely get trends in painting. But when it's something good and creative, like free-handed tattoos, then let's go. Everyone have a go. It's I haven't done one for ages, but I remember trying it loads, and it's a really cool element to have, and it works on busts and 28mm models as well, of course. But yeah, tattooing is definitely a kind of model bucket list, I think, to do.
Yeah. With the tattoos, it's very. I always find it very difficult to try and figure out how to get it so it looks like it's actually sitting under the skin. It's because like you can paint it on top and it's like, well, it just looks like it's painted on top. There's no sort of depth to it, but like this is done really well, and it looks like it is actually sitting under the skin like a tattoo should, which is really cool.
It's a bit like chipping, really. Like when you do when you use chipping fluid, like the paint's physically lower, and that does actually help with your eyes. And I think that I've tried it before where you actually like glaze over the top of the tattoo, and it does, because there's like paint over the top of it, it does help with your depth perception, I think. But yeah, it's a real challenge, because actually to freehand something on is obviously hard, but you know, you could do that, but to make it feel like a tattoo, definitely a really cool thing, and something everyone should at least have a bash at once, I think. So yeah,
definitely there's probably definitely an episode around that kind of thing in there somewhere.
Got it written down, mate.
Yeah,
on the notepad.
We got any more, mate?
So I think we have one more.
I think there's one. This one's just for you, Rich.
Ah, that's really cool. Nice. I love a kit bash. We've got to do a kit bash episode.
I'd say, what was it? The Orc, Shaman, bit of Mechanicus.
Yeah, I'm seeing loads of this guy at the moment. This Shaman's getting painted left, right, and centre. Great.
It's an incredible model. The original is an incredible model. The ability to kit bash it into different things is amazing as well. Like the way that model goes together, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Matt Kennedy's 40k one was awesome, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. What an entry that was.
That was sweet to see that in the cabinets on the day.
And Joe, who was ex-Heavy Metal and now a designer, his version of that model is ridiculously good. Like, stupid good. So, yeah, very versatile model, it seems.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Really good picks this week.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Amazing.
Always took my headphones off. The heavens have opened above me, which might explain it. So, Andy, close so I'm not cutting out.
Yeah, well, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, it's going to go out on YouTube. So, YouTube people, if you want to comment your favorite armies, we would love to see. If you're enjoying the content, then please share it, share the episodes. And we're always trying to come up with nice ideas for episodes. So hopefully you've enjoyed this one, talking about some retro armies, some new armies. And if you've got any suggestions of things we can chat nonsense about for around 90 minutes, then stick them in the comments. But until then, that's Team Cult out. And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Ciao.